Good afternoon, everyone. It's exactly 2:30. Let's give the others a minute or two to join in, and we'll start at 2:32. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. It's 2:32 now, so I think we can proceed. We will accept the other students during the session. And I'll start as per normal in sharing my screen and starting with the PowerPoint presentation. As confirmation, class for today is legal aspects in accountancy with module code AUE1601. As per normal housekeeping rules, to switch off your video, to mute your mic. If you do want to ask a question or give a comment, you're more than welcome to use the raise hand feature within the meeting chat or ask me a question. To complete the attendance register that has been pasted, I will do this again either during the session or towards the end of the session. This will also include the feedback form, and if you should have any study support related queries, you can send an email to cityandtat@unisa.ac.za. What we'll be covering for today's session is announcements. We will also actually, we do have the lecturer Untitled Chapter will have a minute or two just to introduce herself, maybe give any pointers as we head towards the exam period. We will just do a quick recap of the previous session, and after that we will deal with today's topic, which is topic 6, and that is transactions. And starting off with the announcement, the first one is the exam for this module is scheduled for 16th of November from 2 until 3:30. It's a non-venue based, meaning that it's an online assessment. The paper will consist of 30 multiple choice questions for 60 marks, and the exam will be available on the My Exams portal. Secondly, since assignment 1 has the date has closed, the solution is available under the additional resources tab. I think it's best that you do go and look at the solution. As I said earlier, we are heading towards the exam period, so just to make sure, for any answers you do not get correct, what is the correct answer and how, we got into the. And then I'll tell to Priya to see you are online. The floor is all yours.
Hello, hi there, everybody. Hi, Zuku. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the session of today. I will be joining the entire session, so I will be available So even after my introduction, you're also more than welcome, anybody, to ask questions in the chat box. I will also have a look at that and answer questions as we move along. So just a bit about myself. My name is Adele de Pree. I've been with UNISA since 2011, and I first was part of the honors program, and then I moved to the AUE1601 module. So it's very interesting also to see where students are also moving towards. So this module, I really enjoy very much. I know it's sometimes a bit challenging, as this is a NQF level 6 module that you do take in your first year. So sometimes all the legal aspects can be a bit of challenging. But I do encourage you guys, the moment, if you work hard, if you work out the questions and you understand the principles well enough, you will do well in the exam. So the exam, just perhaps before I start with the exam, on the assignment, so assignment 1, as you mentioned just now, that we already released the solution. We are currently busy as we are speaking, actually. I've been this morning also reviewing assignment 2s. So we are marking all the assignment 2s that people submitted. And then that will make up our year mark. Then regarding the exam, it's going to be quite similar to the May-June exam. So it will be, obviously, I think it will really be much better, because our ICT department has also tried their very best to, smooth out the whole process. Also by now, as you also have mentioned, that we will go to the My Exams portal. What I've also learned this week is that our supplementary students will still be writing, which is now supplementary. Just remember, it will be for the 2019 semester 2 supplementaries, as well as semester 1 for 2020. Okay, they will still be writing on their My UNISA site. All of this, though, nobody needs to worry. We will compile a nice document that in any case includes all this information. I'll put up screen prints, what you need to follow in order to get you to the place where you have to write your exam. And then for the students that's registered in this semester, they will then be writing on the My Exams portal. So all that we are trying to do is to move the traffic a bit, to actually get it a bit smoother and help students not to bomb out during the exam and maybe lose answers and all of that. Then also me and my colleague, I've got also a colleague on this module. Her name is Miss Charlene Roots. So between the two of us, we are now currently busy to also compile some revision slides and videos that we will also be posting in the nearby future. Also, after this assignment 2 has been now dealt with, then you can also do some revision, get yourself ready for the exam. I also want to encourage all the people to remember that you are more than welcome to send us emails to the AUE1601 mailbox. We do monitor that on a daily basis, as well as on My UNISA on the main site. And remember, you also have your e-tutors that you can also contact where you are grouped or allocated to. As I said, if there's any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me also on the chat box. But I also just want to encourage you. I know it's been a tough year. It's been a tiring year. I think I can speak on behalf of everybody. It's really been quite a challenging year, but I do want to encourage you guys, just stay focused and do your best, because you will reap the fruits. With your studies, that's something nobody can take away from you. Work hard. Once it's in your brain, it's stored there in your files, in your hard drive. So just do it for yourself. Do your very best, and I promise you, you will be so proud of yourself going forward. Thank you so much, Zuku. But if there's anything else, you're more than welcome to ask. If there's any content-related questions as well, maybe the topics that we are doing today, is it on the topic 5 on transactions?
Yes, we're doing transactions today, yes.
Okay, 100%. Thank you so much, Zuku.
Thank you very much, Adele, for that nice introduction and wise words towards the end. I think one thing you just forgot to motivate the students with, I saw on your signature that you are a chartered accountant.
Yes. I'm one of those people that I don't really brag about that because I don't feel that it's always something to brag about. But yet, as you mentioned, it must be something that you are proud of. And it did take hard work to get there. So maybe just quickly about that was that, yes, throughout my journey, it was not easy. I didn't always, pass every module the first, like for instance, my CTA, I had to redo. And in the end, you know what, it was well worth it. It was a tough road as well, but I learned so much, and it actually just built your character. It makes you very strong, and it helps you. It just actually, it forms you and it makes you just a stronger person. So that's what I also want to tell people. Yes, you might have become a chartered accountant or a particular professional or a senior lecturer at a university, but it's not to say that those people just always had it easy or just passed every time the first time. So also now, if you are in your first year or second year, remember that, because sometimes you would want to give up because you think everybody had it very easy and that you just passed with flying colors, and that's not always the case. So it just actually, as I say, it prepares you for the future. And now with also, it's very exciting times nowadays with the whole psycha 2025 program. Yesterday I actually I was part of a 4-hour session now with the psycha that everybody needs to attend, and there's so many interesting things that's also lying ahead for the people that's going for the whole chartered accountant route and who wants to become that and strive for that.
Thank you, Adele. Actually, the reason why I brought that up, I think it's, for someone who's aspiring, for example, to be a CA, it's always nice, to have someone, maybe just give an overview, of their journey and what they've put through, also like I would assume now in this instance, maybe some of us aren't, even sure of the route that we do want to take, also maybe if there might be any questions during the session, it might be, with regards to that, because look, there aren't many opportunities that, we would ask those questions, like, personally, how has the journey been for you? And actually getting that, from a session like this, So I thought, let me, just ask, and then, even for the students to know that, look, we are actually, in this together, you just have to put your head, in the right direction, have the positive attitude, and, definitely, you will succeed.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you very much, Adele. So I will continue with the presentation. I'll share my screen again. And as Adele had said, if you should have any question, you're more than welcome to ask during the session, and more than welcome to take those questions. Okay, so that was just announcements and just that introduction from Adele. Looking at what we covered in the previous session under enhanced accountability and transparency, firstly, we looked at the application of and general requirements regarding enhanced accountability and transparency. We looked at the company secretary, the auditors, including the appointment, resignation, rotation, and rights and restricted functions of auditors. So basically, we looked at the company secretary, the auditors, and also the audit committee, specifically on their appointment, the resignation, when they should rotate, their rights and restricted functions. And we did actually look at quite some few diagrams in the last session, which provided a good brief overview of all those duties or resignation or rotation. So if you haven't grasped that well, you're more than welcome to look at the video of last week, and also looking into your study guides as well. As I said, it does provide a good overview of what we covered. But what we'll be covering today is transactions, which is fairly short, if I could put it that way, and that is regarding financial assistance for subscription of securities. And then secondly, we will look at the loans or other financial assistance to directors. And right now, I will direct our presentation to the study guide. If you can just give me a moment. Okay, as confirmation, we're doing topic six, which is transaction. And this is section 44 and 45 of the Companies Act. So what I've also noticed is reading through the study guide and comparing it with the Companies Act. The study guide has sort of like, done a good brief summary of what is contained in the Companies Act, which is actually most of the stuff that is there. So I will be going through the study guide today as reference for today's lecture. I will just touch on a bit on the Companies Act, specifically with one definition, but I will go to it during the session. And then lastly, I will still go back again to the Shoprite Holdings annual financial statements of last year in making reference to one specific topic that we'll be covering during the session. But let us go back to the study guide as confirmation. Sections 44 and 45 are very important sections for your studies of the Companies Act. We did touch on a bit on them in the previous sessions, but we will go into a bit of detail during today. So there is a book which is the Companies and Other Business Structures in South Africa, Cape Town, SA, printed by the Oxford University Press. And it says it describes actually the fundamental transactions as transactions that significantly affect ownership of a company's assets or that signal a notable change in shareholding of a company. And that is what will form basis of today's lecture or session. As learning outcomes, what are we going to learn after the session? We'll be able to give advice, discuss concerns, and apply the requirements regarding financial assistance for the subscription of securities. And secondly, is to give advice, discuss concerns, and apply the requirements regarding loans or other financial assistance to directors. And let's start with learning unit 6.1, which is financial assistance for the subscription of securities. And what I've done, they have highlighted the notable remarks in that paragraph, where it specifically says the Act deals with two types of financial assistance. One is the subscription of securities, and the second being the loans or other financial assistance to directors. And in this learning unit, we will start with the first one. And an example of such financial assistance for subscription of securities would be a company that lends money to someone to enable that person to purchase shares in the company. For example, I'm one of the directors of a company, and the company, which is by the board of directors, they have agreed on authorizing a certain number of shares, and the preference is made to the directors to buy up those shares. But now it's in a case where I do not have money at the moment to buy shares, and in this first part that we are dealing with, I can apply to the company to provide or to lend me money to buy the very same shares in the very same company. And that is exactly what we'll be doing, we'll be dealing with. One thing to note in terms of section 44.1, financial assistance does not include lending money in the ordinary course of business by a company whose primary business is the lending of money. For example, a bank normally lends money in its ordinary course of business. If you were to lend money from the bank at the same interest rate and repayment terms as would apply to any other person, and thereafter use this money to purchase shares in the bank, which lent you the money, this would not constitute financial assistance in terms of section 44. The one thing to note there, firstly, is the bank in its ordinary course of business, it lends money. So we're not looking at a business or a company in its ordinary course of business lends money. Secondly, In this case, the director is given the same interest and the repayment terms are the same as any other person. Also, this would not constitute financial assistance in terms of Section 44. Reading further on, financial assistance includes a loan, guarantee, or the provision of security or otherwise to any person for the purpose of or in connection with the subscription of any option or securities issued or to be issued by the company or a related or interrelated company, or for the purpose of any securities of the company or a related or interrelated company. Exactly as I said earlier, I want to buy shares in the company that I work for. I do not have money. I can ask for a loan. Once I'm granted that loan, it's either for those shares that have been issued or shares that will be issued by the company. But where I want to get to is this word there, where it says that it's issued by the company or a related or interrelated company. And let us go to the Companies Act and look at what the word related means. So under the descriptions or the narrations of words used in the Companies Act. Yes, is that a question?
Yes, can I disable a second? I just want to get the definition of someone. There's someone you're speaking about, is a related person, employee, or like it is a related person to a company. That is someone that has to be given as financial assistance in order to buy shares from a company.
Okay, let us look at what the Companies Act defines a related person, and then we'll attempt to answer that question. So it says a related, when used in respect of two persons, means persons who are connected to one another or in any manner contemplated in Section 21A to C. For example, in a case of a company, let's say you've got a holding company and there are two subsidiaries below that. Now, the holding company has authorized shares, meaning it has got shares that needs to be bought up. And one of the subsidiaries actually wants to buy into that company. That company is, the subsidiary is related to that subsidiary, and in that definition, it can apply, for example, a loan to get money to buy shares into the holding company. I hope I've tried to answer your question.
Yes, thanks. No, and then and also as you said, like a related person, which also that related person, that someone include the employees of the company as well.
Yes, so it's so if you read here, it says, for example, issued or to be issued by the company or a related or interrelated company, or for the purpose of any securities of the company or related or interrelated company. So even if it's a case of a company that would be related or interrelated, even so, firstly it says to any person for the purpose of or in connection with the subscription of any option. So any person connected. So for example, let's say
Yeah.
I am one of the directors, and being part of one of the directors, I run my own business on the side. Now, that option that has been given to the directors is we've got these authorized shares to be issued. The option is us on the directors and any related or interrelated person then who can buy into these shares. So my business partner is related to me in the instance of we are business partners in another business that I have. Then in that instance, that person is related or can be able to buy those shares issued or to be issued by the company because of the relation that me and that partner have.
Okay, thank you, Zuko.
Thank you. One other thing to note is from the above paragraph, it is evident that the lending of money is not the only type of financial assistance covered by Section 44. if a company would give up a building which it owns as security in order for you to obtain a loan that is to enable you to purchase shares in this company, it would constitute financial assistance in terms of Section 44. So what that basically means is getting financial assistance does not necessarily need to be money. For example, let's say I'm still one of the directors of the company. I want, or I'm actually applying for a loan, let's say now from a bank, to buy, to use the money to buy shares in the company that I'm working for. But now, let's say the company that I'm working for says, look, we do not have money to, to give to you now. Maybe you can ask for funding somewhere else, and then we can act as surety for that loan. So I go to my bank, I ask for a loan, let's say it's for 10 million, and then the bank asks for surety. Then my company that I'm working for, they can provide that building as surety for the loan that I will be taking at the bank. So that is also allowed in terms of Section 44 of the Companies Act. So basically, it doesn't necessarily need to be only money. It can also be in that instance as well. Now, looking at the very specifics of Section 44, we're going to look at, in order for financial assistance to be provided legally, what needs to be done? Firstly, it should be approved by the board through a director's resolution. Any restrictions in the company's memorandum of incorporation must be complied with. A special resolution should have been passed within the previous 2 years, which approved such assistance either for the specific recipient or generally for a category of potential recipients, and the particular recipients should fall within this category. So basically, there should have been a special resolution that has been passed within the previous 2 years, where it does make provision for when shares are issued or authorized by the company and the director wants to apply for a funding or financial assistance to buy those shares, what are the requirements that need to be met? Hence, it's saying they should be passed by a special resolution within the previous 2 years. Always very important, the board should be satisfied that the solvency and liquidity tests have been satisfied immediately after providing the financial assistance. This is also the very same case when a company has issued shares. The solvency and liquidity test must be satisfied immediately after issuing those shares. So even in this instance, those two tests must be satisfied. This is also giving assurance to the board of directors that the company will still be sustainable even if the financial assistance is provided. The board should be satisfied that the terms under which the financial assistance is to be given are fair and reasonable to the company. The board must ensure that if the company's memorandum of incorporation includes any conditions or restrictions regarding the giving of financial assistance, they must have been complied with. And as a note, it is not a prerequisite that the company's memorandum of incorporation must authorize such a transaction. In other words, if no reference is made in the memorandum of incorporation to financial assistance, the transaction can still go ahead, provided that the company has complied with the other requirements set out above. So basically what it says there is firstly that the board must ensure that the MOI includes any conditions or restrictions. For example, one of the conditions could be if the director will let's say resign from the company within a specific time, then when the company is when the director is being paid, or given the package, then preference must be made to pay back that loan. That could be a condition. Another restriction could be regarding the shares is the director is not allowed to sell those shares, to any person. This could be regardless if they are fully paid or the director is still paying back the financial assistance that he got from the company. So all those must be included in the memorandum of incorporation. If not, the transaction can still go ahead, provided that all the other requirements that are read above are satisfied. And then the inclusion of the special resolution requirement is an essential safeguard against potential abuse of power by the directors. So you would recall when we looked at the director's resolution, either it was an ordinary resolution or a special resolution. And we said with a special resolution, we need at least 75% of the directors agreeing, for example, to what has been discussed. So even in this instance, for providing financial assistance, we need a special resolution to be passed. This is to safeguard against any potential abuse of power of directors. If you think about it, let's say we've got 7 directors, and 5 directors are in agreement to provide this financial assistance to the director. This would be an ordinary resolution. There might be a chance that the other 5 directors would have been against that financial assistance. So that's why we need the majority of the directors to provide or to agree on providing that financial assistance to any of the directors. And then what do we mean by securities? As a recap, securities referred to above, this could be bonds, debentures, or any other form of security. It could be the purchase of any securities of the company or a related or interrelated company. In other words, the securities of upward, downward, and sideways companies. For example, in a case of you've got the holding company, and below that you've got the subsidiary. It could also be sideways, where a subsidiary is buying into another subsidiary. Diagram 6.1 contains a summary of section 44. Let me do the summary, and then we can take any questions if there are any. So diagram 6.1.1, financial assistance to purchase securities. Always remember, financial assistance can take the form of a loan, guarantee, a provision of security. Apart from loans, other forms of financial assistance are often hidden in the scenario. For example, this would be a company that passes a bond over its assets to raise money for the purchaser to pay for its shares. But now, how do we deal with a company whose primary business is the lending of money? If the answer is yes, then Section 44 does not apply if the lending takes place in the ordinary course of business. If no, meaning that the company's primary business is not the lending of money.
Zuko,
Yes.
Zuko,
Yes,
ask the
Loreto?
fellow student to be on mute. We can hear the background of the children.
Okay, let me check here. Actually, let me do it here on my phone. Okay, thanks, Loreto. Please just make sure that the mic is always kept on mute. Thank you. So what do we do in a case where a company is its primary business is not the lending of money? Then we can apply the terms of Section 44. And as a summary, what are the requirements? Any conditions set out in the MOI should be met. Liquidity and solvency tests should be satisfied immediately after the financial assistance has been granted. Fair and reasonable terms should apply to the financial assistance, meaning that there should not be any negativity towards either the company or the director. And most importantly, a special resolution should be obtained, and this must be passed within the previous 2 years, if not pursuant to an employee share scheme. If these requirements are not adhered to, either the transaction will be void, and any directors that have signed up on this financial assistance can be held liable for losses the company has incurred in this regard. And this will also be similar to a case where the directors have issued shares that were not authorized by the board, where they can be jointly and severally liable for the debts incurred by the company, they need to pay back any interest applicable to the company. And as I said, obviously the contract will be null and void. Any questions before we move to the next section, which is loans to directors? Maybe Adele, if you've got anything that you would want to chip in, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. I will, if there's anything.
Thank you. Let me double check if I don't have any messages on my side. Okay, no messages so far. Okay, thank you. Let's proceed. So now we're going to look at the second learning unit, which is loans or other financial assistance to directors. So this is the second type of financial assistance that could be granted to directors. One thing to note in the introduction, so this is Section 45 of the Companies Act and includes the granting of a loan or other financial assistance from a company to one of its directors or a related person of the director. To determine if a company, yes?
I just want to ask this assistance and loan to financial assistant to directors. It applies to all companies, not only to JSE companies only.
So remember, with in the previous sessions that we touched, we always looked at public companies or company or any other company except private companies. So that formed the basis of the previous sessions. So in this instance, this is what the Companies Act is saying. So if you fall within the ambit of the Companies Act, then this does apply to you. Obviously, as I would previously, or as I had mentioned, the MOI can always add something that is contained in the Companies Act. For example, Section 44 says that there mustn't be any conditions or restrictions in providing that financial assistance to the directors. However, if, for example, it's a private company, they can make an amendment to their memorandum of incorporation where they could specify these are the conditions if you are granted a financial assistance. These are the restrictions if we have given you financial assistance. So an MOI can always be in addition to what is contained in the Companies Act.
Okay, thank you, Zoro.
Thank you. So loans or other financial assistance to directors, as I said, is Section 45. And to determine if a company may provide financial assistance to any parties, we have to look at Section 45.2. We will look at diagram 6.2.1, which gives us an overview of what Section 45 is. Is important, financial assistance can take the form of a loan, a guarantee, a provision of security, etc. Apart from loans, other forms of financial assistance are often hidden in the scenario, like, for example, the company providing surety for a loan taken by a director from the bank. But what is excluded? The primary business of the company is the lending of money, and the loan in question is in the ordinary course of business, for example, a bank, where the interest rate or the conditions would apply to any ordinary person, that is excluded. So if you are a director of a bank and its main business is to lend money and you want to use that money to buy the issued shares or shares to be issued, that is excluded. It does not fall within the ambit of this section. The financial assistance is for meeting legal expenses relating to a matter concerning the company. So let's say, for example, you are being investigated for fraud and corruption and you've got your legal team. You cannot ask for assistance or you cannot ask for a loan from the company that is actually determining if you are actually, fraudulent and corrupt. So you cannot ask for financial assistance for meeting legal expenses. Thirdly, the financial assistance is for paying for expenses to be incurred by the person on behalf of the company. So, for example, you cannot ask for a loan because you want to take out, one of or maybe a couple of the directors of companies that we do business with. There should be a separate account for that expense. So you cannot ask, for a loan, that will be incurred on behalf of the company. Lastly, the financial assistance is an amount to defray the person's expenses for removal at the company's request. And that is section 45(1)(b). And as an example, let us go to that section in the Companies Act. Section 45(b)(1). Okay, so section 45, which is loans or other financial assistance to directors, it says here in this section, financial assistance does not include lending money in the ordinary course of business by a company whose primary business is the lending of money. So this talks to the first point that, sorry, let me just confirm here. Okay, so actually it's the whole point B, section 45(b). So it does not include lending money in the ordinary course of business by a company whose primary business is the lending of money, an accountable advance to meet legal expenses in relation to a matter concerning the company, or an anticipated expense to be incurred by the person on behalf of the company, or any amount to defray the person's expenses for removal at the company's request. So basically what we've covered here. So those are all excluded, meaning that you cannot ask for a loan or financial assistance for any of those expenses. Either could it be legal or expenses that are to be incurred by the person on behalf of the company. But what are the requirements for you to be given a loan or financial assistance? Any conditions set out in the Memorandum of Incorporation in this regard should be met. The liquidity solvency test should be satisfied immediately after the financial assistance has been granted. The terms should be fair and just to the company and the director. A special resolution should be obtained, must have been passed within the previous 2 years, except if the financial assistance is pursuant to an employee share scheme. Just maybe to give an example of an employee share scheme, this is normally done by companies that want to retain their employees. This is sort of like a way that you do buy shares into the company. For example, let's say at year end you get a bonus, but then when you get the bonus, you are given an option to buy into your employer, and that is via an employee share scheme. You, with a certain amount of your bonus, you can buy X amount of shares, and you will still be treated as a shareholder of the company. And as I said, it's mostly to retain employees. A written notice of the meeting and the intended assistance should be given to all shareholders, unless all shareholders are directors. If you remember, when we did meetings, we spoke about notice of meetings. The minutes of meetings must be distributed to all the shareholders or the relevant shareholders as confirmation of any decisions that were made. Lastly, a written notice of the meeting and the intended assistance should be given to any trade union that is representing the employees of the company. So you will recall that in South Africa, trade unions are a big chunk of, the managing of, I would call it the economy. So any decisions that are made, some of them do need to be concurred to the trade unions. This is also just to make sure that it's in line to the mandate of the company, and also not sidestepping any trade union agreements that the company would have with the trade union. Then what should happen if these requirements are not adhered to, as the same as financial assistance to directors? The transaction will be void and the directors can be held liable for losses incurred by the company. This is actually, today's sessions is quick and short. What I want to do before I open the room for any questions, going back into the Shoprite Holdings annual financial statements of 2019, when I actually looked through at it, I noticed this section that I will just put on the screen here. So I actually went to go and check if there weren't any special resolutions or any directors that were given loans or financial assistance, and I came through this section here, which is special resolution, and it reads as follows. At the annual general meeting of Shoprite Holdings held on 29 October 2018, the shareholders approved the following special rules. The special rule number 1 was the remuneration payable to non-executive directors, so a special resolution was passed for this. Special resolution number 2, financial assistance to subsidiaries, related and interrelated entities. Special resolution number 3, financial assistance for securities. And special resolution number 4, general authority to repurchase shares. So basically what we've covered today is what would be contained in the special resolution number 2 and 3 of Shoprite Holdings. I did look through the whole annual financial statements, just maybe to see if I will have the specifics of how that resolution is written and what was decided. And unfortunately, I could not find any, but I just thought this is something that I should just bring up just to confirm, that in the annual financial statement, this is something that has also been reported on, that there were special resolutions that were, signed in regard to financial assistance, either for the subscription of securities or the assistance to subsidiaries, related and interrelated entities. Any questions on what we've covered?
Asugo,
Yes, Oletu.
since you mentioned about the exam, I just want to ask, since these topics are interrelated, like liquidity and solvency ratios, and we spoke about capitalizations, and also financial assistance to directors, and also we spoke about meeting shareholders and all that. In the exam, what kind of question do like when we given a scenario? Do we given one scenario that entailing all the topics?
Do you maybe, Adele, want to chip in there? But what I could say from my side is, it's very different in a case where, for example, you had to write a venue-based exam. In that way, there would be open-ended questions, there would be essay questions. If that was the case, with essay questions, you would have structured your solution or answer, related to what the question is asking. For example, if you would talk about, a special resolution should have been passed within the previous 2 years, and they should be distributed to all the shareholders. And maybe as a note, just to confirm that you are understanding the topic, that the notice of meetings requirements, the quorums, the signing of the special resolution, meaning that at least 75% should have signed the special resolution, have all been attended to, that will also show that you do actually understand, even other aspects of the act, which is, it will be in relation to what has been asked. But obviously, I think it will be different in this instance because it will be multiple choice. So it will be a case of you are given a scenario, and in that scenario, you are being specifically asked, let's say, for example, let's say the scenario would be, for an authorization of shares to be done, what type of a resolution, and maybe one of the options would be a director's resolution, ordinary resolution, or a special resolution. So it would be, the answer would be limited in that way because it will be multiple choice. But Adele, if there's anything maybe you would need to add, or maybe I've missed, you're more than welcome.
Hi there. Yes, I think it's a very good question, and I think it's good that we quickly have a look at what to expect for the exam. So it is quite different. So usually, the format of assignment 2, that was usually almost what you would have expected in the exam. So it would have been that thing of basically questions ranging from 10 marks or so, and then we wanted to test your theory in some of it, or some we actually test both theory and application. And also usually we had, for instance, one big scenario or perhaps maybe two, and then we had all the questions that's based on the scenario. With a multiple choice, you've got different options to set these questions, but what we decided to use, and which is the safest for students, because there's different ways, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but when you do have one big scenario and you have, for instance, a couple of questions that's based on that scenario, it could be that a student needs to scroll to the next question and the next one, and then sometimes it doesn't save. So what we just decided, in short, is to have, let's call it maybe a paragraph per question, and then only on that paragraph we ask you, for instance, as you mentioned, what type of resolution is needed. And what we also try and do is to combine the questions, because you see now we also sit with another challenge, which is the integrity and honesty and that type of thing, because now we are online, so obviously people can have their books with them or they can sit in groups, so it makes it quite challenging for us to still make sure that we look at the ethical side and the integrity side of things. So almost to just give you an example, we've got almost short bits of scenario per question. So it's not that you are confused, you don't maybe know this question asks about this company's financial assistance, for instance, and now you don't know on which page is that. So we really made it quite simple and easy. So when you have your multiple choice question, basically same as with assignment 1. So that's a nice reference for the people. And then we just test you on that small bit, on that just one paragraph. And what I can also tell students is that you need to know your theory and application well enough, because it won't be as easy as just quickly, looking the answer up, because we try and integrate the questions, still keeping it on the same standard, not making it more difficult than what it should be. We keep it fair to students, but it's just that thing of, you need to have studied to be able to answer the questions. And maybe while we're on that, I just made some notes. Just make sure there's small things. Like, for instance, now when I marked assignment 2, I do pick up where students get confused with small technical things. For instance, which resolutions you do take. So we say now, for instance, on the financial assistance, that was also in assignment 2, we need the shareholders to take a special resolution, right? But then I do see that students write, they the special resolution, but then they end by saying it's taken by the board. So, and that's not right. So we must just be careful with these small technicalities, and also with liquidity and solvency. But I think that's also something you already actually in these sessions have nicely discussed, where with solvency, we actually deal with the total assets and total liabilities, not just non-current or current. And with obviously liquidity, we only deal with the current part of assets and liabilities. But it's these small, things that you have to distinguish, that need to know, is it now a board resolution? Is it a shareholders resolution? Also the percentages, when is it more than 50% that needs to vote for a particular resolution, or is the higher percentage? All those small technicalities can be tested in the exam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Any more
Adele.
questions?
That's
Thank
all
you,
from my
Adele.
side. Thank you, Adele and Zulu.
Okay, thanks, Oletu.
Yes,
Thanks, Adele. Also, I actually remember one of the questions that were asked earlier when we started with the sessions was, is a reference to the section required? And I am assuming that in this instance, since there will be no space to actually, answer, essay questions, that won't be needed.
Yes, and it's good that you do ask this question. Say, for instance, next year in May, we move back to the normal way of writing venue-based exams. We don't want to catch students out. We don't want to penalize you for not remembering, is it now section 45 or is it now section 35? It's more important to know for a student to actually know that there is a particular section. I just can't remember the exact number, but I don't penalize you on the exact number, but you do remember the principles of the Companies Act. So that's more important than just the number, because you will be in a position to quickly look it up if you were not sure about the number. But yes, it was a good question. Again, yes, for this multiple choice method that we are following, it won't be now really necessary really relevant.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions?
Can I also say something else, Zuku?
Yes, you may, Adele.
Also, what we have always been doing, and we are still doing, is to not spot just particular topics. So we try, again, even it out. We test everything. It's not that just 2 topics will be important for the exam, so that students feel, now wasted time to actually study some of, or basically the rest of the work. We actually always try and test all the topics as much as we can, so that we make sure that the students do have a thorough understanding and knowledge of the module going forward. Because we have to remember that students sometimes only see, in some modules in your undergrad, you do see a little bit of Companies Act, but sometimes you really only go into more detail again in postgraduate. So we really we really always make sure that the entire syllabus gets tested in the exam, to also make it fair that you have not wasted any time studying on a particular topic.
So that
and
is
integration, sorry. Just something else on the integration, if I can also add, is, for instance, on section 44 that we've discussed today, just remember now, so there's these section 44 requirements that's now particular, that you need to know, but also we can go a step further. So it deals with the financial assistance to subscribe to shares. So now what is the second leg of it, we can call it, is what do we do with the issue of shares? And then that's where topic 3 now also comes into play. What are all the sections that's relevant to the issuing of shares? Do we have enough authorized share capital? Do we need to go and increase the MOI, the Memorandum of Incorporation? What do I need to do to go and amend my Memorandum of Incorporation? So there's so many things that can be integrated, because it just really follows onto each other. And that's, again, what I want to refer to yesterday's session with SAICA 2025, is that we need to move away from just studying in silos. Same with all your other modules, if I can tell this to the students. We must remember that everything just doesn't sit on its own island. Along the line, these things gel, and they actually form part of a bigger story. And that's why I do like what you also do, is by looking at the financial statements now of ShopRite, for instance, because now a student already could see where does it come into play, these special resolutions. I actually like that very much, because now you could see, oh, it's actually in the financial statements. It really does happen. It's not just in this module where we learn about this. It's actually out there in the business world. Yes.
Thank you for that, Adela. Actually, maybe you can also give an example. I remember when I was doing my BTech, doing financial accounting 4 and actually financial reporting, we did do a lot of, share calculations, like for example, calculating capitalization shares, weighted average shares, so now it might be an introduction, to your further years in your studies. So I think maybe what I can, maybe add from my side is not to read for the sake of reading, or study for the sake of studying, but study, and understand what is there, like as you said, yes, now we're doing this section. However, I remember I can also tie this with what we did in the previous few sessions, and that is that studying, and also putting it into practical examples. For example, using the annual financial statements just to see where these pieces fit together.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Remember, as much Adore could be here, she's also available, even, not in this platform, but look, she is here. I think you will get a very quick, straight, direct response. You might also be actually asking for someone else, who is not comfortable in asking that question. So you're more than welcome to ask a question. And while you're doing that, I have pasted the links to the attendance register and the feedback form. You're more than welcome to give any feedback that you want. Yeah.
I'll just put off my video, but I'll still be here. If
Okay.
anyone
Thank you,
has
Adele.
questions.
And then
Hi,
maybe what?
Sam. People.
Okay. Yes. Yes, you can go for it.
I know I joined late. So I would like to check where can I get the recordings because I'm doing sub on this one. I'm not getting any communication from this module.
Okay. Thank you for the question. So please do send an email to ctntat@unisa.ac.za. This is the email address I always have when we start with the session. I will repeat it again. But when you send that email, just do specify that you do not have access to the recordings, and they will try and organize or grant you access to be able to even view the videos. So please do send an email to ctntut@unisa.ac.za, and you will have access even to the previous recorded sessions for this module.
I did send an email when I first joined your class, and you gave me the email address, but they're not responding.
Okay, let me take note of your name, Tandega, and then I will just follow up with the coordinators.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then the moment I do get a response from them, I will actually ask them to reply to you directly, and they just copy me in that email. And then I think what you can do on your side, once you have received confirmation, just to reply back to confirm that you do have access, and then we know everything is correct or fine on your side.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And then maybe while we're still waiting as confirmation, next week we will be doing topic 7, which is business rescue and protection for whistleblowers. Maybe we can use an example of SAA when we deal with business rescue. And then protection for whistleblowers, I'll try to find an article around the World Cup 2010. As you would have seen lately now in the media and news, that there are people who are being arrested by the Hawks in relation to fraud and corruption that happened pre and post the World Cup. And I do remember there were a couple of, whistleblowers. Some of them, were assassinated, for speaking out against fraud and corruption during that time. So I will try to find articles that we can use as an exercise when we doing topic 7, which is next week. If there are any questions, you're more than welcome to log out. We are done for today about 20 minutes earlier. So the floor is still open. If not, we'll definitely see each other next week, Saturday. And thank you very much, Adele, for joining us. Always appreciated, and definitely I do hope that the students will pass, although it still might be early days to be wishing them well. But I am hoping that even with the revision sessions or packs that you are organizing, they will be fruitful for their revision in relation to the exam that they will be writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zuku. Yes, I agree. We will be compiling those and we will then post them. We will also post, I've just heard from the previous student, to make sure that we do post it on the supplementary MyUnisa websites as well, so that they don't, lose out on anything. If there's in any ways, any unsurety about, people, a supplementary student that feels that they don't find anything, you're also welcome to email the AUE1601 website. So it's AUE1601@unisa.ac.za. So if there's any questions, you're welcome to pop us an email. We can also, Zuko, you can be in contact with me if at a later stage you also want me to visit again in one of the sessions. I know there's not so many left, I suppose, because we're running towards the end of the year at the moment, but
Yes.
you're welcome to also just email me regarding that.
Okay, no, definitely I will do so. Thank you very much. And Tandega, I've got the email there in the meeting chat, as confirmed by Adele. It's AUE1601@unisa.ac.za. I think maybe to speed up the process, rather send an email to them directly because they do have your registration information. Yeah, and then we just take it from there.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tandega. Okay, guys, don't see any further question. I will stop the recording. And do enjoy your afternoon, because I will, and we'll definitely see each other next week, Saturday, 2:30 till 4 o'clock. And then we can do topic 7, which is the second last lecture. I also think we will still have enough time, for any questions. So if you do have any questions for me for the previous sessions that we did, you're more than welcome to send your questions on the meeting chat for this module code, and then I will have them ready for next week. Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to log off.